Hello everyone and welcome back to that one playthrough of MMORPG Tycoon 2. I am Kyle once again, and you find us in Karak just finishing up a few last minute details. Yes, I would like to populate and also add a few more buildings to kind of the ending village here. So this is on the northwest side of Karak. The reason for this being, by this point, we're hoping players are going to hit level 5, or sorry, rather, they're going to hit level 6. So they're going to go from 5 to 6. So we are going to need to place some trainers. First, I want to make sure we've got a couple of buildings in place, but not too many. The other option, actually, now that I think about it, we have a couple things we could do. I could put the trainers here, so as you finish, you level up and you come out here, you do your upgrades, you buy your next level trainer-wise. However, if we go in and look, level 4, meaning that when players get from Eastwash into Zephyr, they're going to need to buy a level, go to the trainer and do that. When they get to level 5, they're going to go into Karak. However, they're not going to need any trainers because they're not gaining anything until level 6. Now, once they complete Karak, the idea in my head is they're going to pass through this region a little bit. They'll utilize this for some leveling, but we want to get them over here, which is where we're going to have our capital city of Valkyrin. That is obviously where we'll put a ton of trainers. So maybe I'll do that, and then we can keep this relatively small. I think the only other thing I really want to add here is possibly another tavern. So I'll probably just add a fearless tavern. That seems like it's pretty easy to do. However, gotta put in a location where I'm not going to destroy anything first, and then we'll migrate it over. And then we can go ahead and maybe add like a little path here, see what the game will let me do. If I just kind of go like that, and then see if I can maybe go around here by this rock. Yeah, I can kind of go, oh, come on, there, and then I can have it kind of connect back. Well, not letting me do that. What else can I do here? We'll go there, and then we'll just move this tree slightly. Perfect. Okay, that's all I really want down here. This doesn't need to be like a full-fledged town or anything. We'll throw in... Oh, we should throw in just maybe a little shop, but that's easy enough to do. I'm thinking just like the typical tiny shop here. Can I put this in a place where it won't delete anything? There we go. Oops, I put another one over here. I didn't mean to do that. You may go away. You can get deleted. Thank you. And then you... I'm going to put you like right here by this rock next to... Yeah, next to the path. That looks good. And then we'll quickly just place some NPCs around. So we'll put some of our lumberjacky gnomes, a couple of these guys scattered around. We'll add some fighters of Zephyr because we're not too far from there. We'll add maybe an alchemist here. He can be kind of our shopkeeper. And then, yeah, we should add like a little area for some mounts. So let's put, no, I want fences. Do some minor little fencing. Alright, there we go. Not too much. Just a place for people who are using some topazosaurs as mounts to kind of camp them up for the night. We'll add some more scenery in there at some point. For the time being, though, I'll put a little guy here as kind of the quote-unquote shopkeeper. And then I think this would also be a good place to kind of go ahead and put a little flight path start. Oh, I didn't want to get rid of that tree. Put a tree back there. There we go. So I have a little flight path here. Well, we could always put more into... I'm not sure where I want to take it to yet, but I think that'd be a good little foundational thing to do. And then it's probably not a bad idea to actually have a potion shop here, just because I've noticed potions are one thing a lot of players do actively use a lot of, and I would like them to have that service so that they can always kind of revert back to somewhere to make sure they've got enough. What am I running into? Put that there, and then I'm going to move this rock a little bit. This tree. There we go. Okay, so at least now there's some services down here between the inn, potion shop, little market stall, all that stuff. Okay, so I got a foundation there. Okay, now we're going to kind of do both of these zones in conjunction, I think. So normally I know I've been kind of focusing on one site versus, you know, worrying about others. For the most part, Karak is done. I want to start transitioning into the next areas here. I will be kind of in some downtime when I'm not recording, potentially doing some more detailing in here because I still haven't quite figured out exactly what I want to do with the skeleton zone here in Karak. So time will tell there. However, thinking about these two slots here, this site here, don't have a name for this yet. It's currently called the Moonstone Valley. That's kind of cool sounding. but I'm probably not going to use one of the generic names from the game. Over here, we've already named this as Valkyrin. To kind of get us kickstarted here, though, we're going to need to make sure we've got a network. I've got 2 uplinks in Karak. I'm thinking I might be able to get away with kind of 1 here in this region, because I'll kind of utilize the uplink on the east side of Karak here to kind of feed into here as well. I'm probably going to start with just 1 within what is going to be Valkyrin, and I'll kind of centralize it where I think the core of the city will be, which will kind of be more along this mountain face and then kind of come out really far, or I position it more based along this wall and this corner, because we are going to enter from this side. So I'll kind of put this here. If it ends up getting super crowded there with a lot of players and a lot of things going on, which I hope it will, we might have to add more. Okay, so this, we're going to go from here underneath, bring that to there, and then we'll kind of do regular bandwidth along the inside of this region. And I'm going to try and create loops here so that way the bandwidth kind of spreads out evenly. And then we're going to go through the middle here, up this way, and then I'll connect. And then from here, take this around to all the way back here in the corner, and then we'll connect again. Okay, so that should give us a ton of access through this portion of that region. Pathwise, we're going to want to do a mountain pass here. Now, something I've been kind of playing around with, and I think this might be a good little tutorial moment. If you go to build a path between 2 regions, it's just kind of a straight line. You can see it. It shifts depending on where you put it, but it is always going to be a direct path from one to the other. If I go ahead though and I make a path, I think if I go right about here, and all I want is that little segment right there, and then I go back to the mountain pass, there's a chance that we can connect from there, you see, to potentially go elsewhere. Now I don't want to go into this region. I do have some thoughts for this region, but that will be for the future. Let's see if I just kind of add another little path here. Not quite, not quite. Let's see if I bring this a little bit further like that. Oh, there we go, okay. So that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be, it's not really angled, but it's not straight through. I kind of did almost what I wanted it to do, but you'll notice we got to play around with it over here a lot, where I was able to create kind of this V path. And what I'll probably never do is put one between here. So if you go from this region up here and you want to go into Krok, you kind of have to go all the way around this little mountain range. So we've got the path there. Let's go ahead and initiate a path through here. And I want this to kind of come around wide, big turn, not necessarily along the mountain range. And then it's going to cut through toward the side here. And then I want to leave kind of this corner really open. It might transition to some of these other ones. Not 100% sure yet. But I want this to feel like it's kind of got a rolling pathway. Yeah, kind of give it some character, snaking through there a little bit, and then we'll use that as an opportunity to place the scenery as the reasoning why, rather than going the other way around. And this region here, I've kind of already decided what it's going to be. It's just going to be like the main farmland area of the Empire. So you're going to have the capital city be as much of this zone down here that I can possibly use. This is going to be kind of your farm region with some other stuff going on. We'll have one region that's going to be partially like a port for the capital city. Maybe it is this one and we kind of utilize this pocketed bay up here. Not 100% sure. As far as our capital goes though, we're going to have to try and do some city planning. I don't want to put too many paths down because I want things to kind of feel like I'm building them organically. So I don't want to take the path from here and then just kind of feed it in and create like city streets and stuff. What I want to do is kind of create the core area of where the city was originally built. So if you think about really old cities, most of the time they've got really unoptimized, inefficient central corridors that are really thin streets, and that's because they were built around old-time facets of transportation, walking, horse carts, that kind of thing. Obviously, our city is going to still be in that kind of realm, time frame of that type of transportation, but you don't really see cities that get like major street grids of straight lines until city planning comes about. So I'm going to pretend as if the city kind of started up in this corner and we're going to have kind of the old side of town be here as if it was built along this corner of the mountain ranges. And then we'll kind of go into a spot in the central here where maybe this is where I'm going to have more of like the main quote unquote castle or keep. We'll have some other sectors over here. And then as things build out further this direction, they're going to start to look and feel more organized, as if there was more planning and thought that went into it later on. Now we've got to create inns and that stuff in these regions anyways. So I'm going to pretend like, okay, we've got a really small inn on this corner, and this is kind of where the city was originally born. Okay, now there has to be a reason for this, which means there's probably going to be a transition into some of these other regions, as if this was a stopping point when the road kind of came through here back in the day. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So we'll kind of create our first initial inn and tavern here, and then there should be kind of an old shop right across the street. I'm going to go with the Fearless one. It kind of feels like, obviously all of the marketplaces are relatively temporary feeling, but for the most part this one feels like still slightly looking like it's permanent. I'm also going to go ahead and play the speed of the game a bit quicker, so that way, you know, things in the background keep happening. And I just want like a really straightforward path here. Okay, and then to make sure these things get some power, let's just connect some dots around here. Okay, got a good, nice, clean spider web here going. All right, so these should now be powered and uploaded and all that jazz. Oh man, if this is all going to be a city, we've got our work cut out for us. Okay, we do need a respawn point, it is reminding me too. I'm going to go with kind of the old pumpkin patch one again. I really like this one. It just seems like it fits a lot more aesthetics. And if I go there, then it feels like, yeah, it's kind of a little bit on a hill. I like that. I kind of like this ledge up here too. I could put some stuff up high there. Kind of cool to have something up here kind of looking down. Maybe I can put another house up there. Look at that. I'm already building things. Fantastic. This is what I mean by that kind of really organic feeling of building. I know it doesn't look like much, but it's plenty of room we can use to fill stuff in as we feel the need arise. All right, here it is, folks, the beginning of Valkyrin. Remember this image, because we're hoping it's not going to look like this for very long. You know, we're going to have to do the thing we did before, where I'm just going to throw tons and tons of houses down. And, well, we're going to need a lot. Like a lot. Let's see if we can break the game. Oh, that might just be the town right there. Look at that. No, just kidding. That's not it. Okay, this is where it gets a little dicey, because I want to just let things kind of go where they feel good. Like right there, sort of. But we also want to pay attention to what it does to the ground, the sidewalks, all that stuff. We might find throughout time here, it's better to just kind of move things around, inspect it, and then move from there. Yeah, because we can always do stuff like this, and that'll help keep the path kind of situated. And well, I'm going to go ahead and take over here in post-production and speed up the video quite a bit, because there is a lot of building that's about to go down. So here we're just kind of starting off. I'm kind of pre-planning out some of the walkway paths that'll go into the surrounding territories. That one that kind of has a desert look into it right there up to the north, that's probably going to be where part of our port is, or some kind of trade mecca that attaches to the backside of the city there. And we'll obviously have to create some kind of like more or less structure that allows for defenses on that side as well, because we don't want our city to have a wall on one side and not on the other, that sort of thing. And yeah, so I kind of cleared away some space here. I'm going to utilize the north side of the territory here for Valkyrin to build our main keep. I'm utilizing the modular building that kind of looks like a fairy tale castle almost. Going to build a central location here, put some towers through the corners, and realize there's a couple different types of corners and the way they can face. So I started playing around with that just a little bit to kind of get a feel for it, and then figure out a good spot to put it. The height and placement was you know, more or less just wanted it to be seen from all across the territory. Didn't want it to necessarily be hidden anywhere, so good centralized location, and then we'll start to build some walls more or less around it, at least as far as this kind of main central castle is concerned. There's going to be more walls throughout the entire province per se. I did this kind of the same way I did that ruined castle in Eastwash, so very similar build style. As you build on the side of the hill, you can tell it kind of moves the height of certain portions of it up and down. So I take another segment here, place it next to that one, so anything I build onto this second segment will actually interfere with the other ones I've already placed. So you can kind of get things situated that way, and then not have to worry about them interfering with other pieces of this. Yeah, and that way you can kind of create different segments of it that you can control the height, control the outcome of everything, and not have to worry about your whole thing moving around too much. If you built that front wall and actually made the corner and had the side walls go back, it would create a space in between the two side walls where that central keep would actually get its height adjusted as well, because everything's going to be kind of interconnected across the entire segment, if that makes sense. Maybe it's hard to visualize, but that's why I made the side walls a different piece of the actual modular segments, and you can see that one gets super high because it starts to climb up the side of the wall, but it didn't look too bad. I thought it kind of utilized portions of the mountainside to adequately bring itself up. The same way if you had an architect kind of building something like that in anyways, they would probably end up utilizing portions of the rock and the land that's already there to kind of help build height. This segment here is kind of building a entryway to this, so I end up putting a second side in here just shortly. There it is. And the idea here was to create kind of like a pathway up to it. So I wanted it to feel like there was an entrance you walk up kind of in between the two, put a pathway in between there as well as time goes by here. Get that situated. Again, separate modular pieces so that the heights don't tend to interfere too much with each other. Same goes for the segments that are actually behind it there. So you can see it kind of slopes up super fast toward those doorways I built in. And then we start to build out some fence work. So this, I originally was going to do like a big giant wall, like a castle wall around this, but I thought, you know, I don't want this segment to feel like it's blocked off from the rest of the city. I want it to feel like it more or less is its own private sanctum, but is still kind of like, you know, a short enough wall that people walk past it knowing that it's extremely private, protected property, but it's not necessarily a fortress segment, if you will. And then this kind of piece here, I wanted to create kind of like a service house on the inside, maybe for the servants, whoever else. And if you build that as close to the walls as you can, and then you use the modular segments like I just did there, you can actually have it built into the walls and they won't interfere with each other. If you tried to move it later, it would have an issue and it wouldn't let you, but if you place it next to it and then add the modular segments, it ends up not being an issue. I tried to cut two paths next to each other in there, didn't quite work, so ended up having to kind of move on from there and kind of go with some of my other plans until I thought of something else. Wanted to create a central courtyard here, and then I just do one pathway up the middle. We'll add quests and NPCs and whatnot into the middle there. Players to kind of go up and actually talk to people who live around here. Got some good use of the little fountain here that's part of the scenery. Struggled to kind of put a pathway around it there, but then I was able to shift it and kind of center it a little bit. I ended up playing a little bit too long with the way this was situated. I didn't want it to be flat relative to the ground. I wanted it to be actually level. So then I was trying desperately to figure out a way to make it look like there wasn't a space underneath it. So I started putting some rocks. Got bored very, very quickly and decided, no, I'm gonna go do something else. We'll come back to that later. And then I decided to start putting some more houses down. These, I wanted them to be kind of like little, not like guard huts almost, I guess. So there would be little guards kind of patrolling segments of the area around this this central kind of keep, and I keep wanting to say fortress, but it's not the fortress. It's the kind of residence of the royalty in the area. So little guard huts along the roads here. We'll get those other houses out of the way so I can continue that. There we go. Perfect. Just like so. And there is kind of the entryway to the main palace segment. And, well, this next section here, I get a little carried away and then end up just kind of deleting it. The idea here was I wanted to create like a ceiling. So there was a place you would walk into like a room segment. And I found very quickly, unfortunately, that the underside of this type of building kind of has a circular look to it, and it didn't feel like a smooth ceiling. So I eventually just kind of said, you know what, screw it, we're gonna get rid of that. We'll kind of worry about something like that later. The idea was I wanted to have like a segment of the castle that players would actually go inside of, like a big room or a building. Think of like a grand throne room type of situation. Not going to work with that building type, I don't feel like. So we'll think of something later for that. We might even end up changing segments of that that overall keep build out. But for the time being, it'll suffice. Here we're building a modular building around the shopkeeper, or around the little shop itself, and I thought this was cool. Worked out really, really well, because I could cover up portions of it, and it looked like the shop was straight just built out of the side of the house. So that was something I had never thought of doing before, and I'll probably do again in the future, because of how easy it was to do and how good it actually looks. I was pleasantly surprised. And then I'm going to spend a lot of time here kind of placing modular buildings. The main thing I want to get across here without, boring anyone too much is, this is really, for me, it was just like, I'm just going to click on things, see how they look when I add segments. I'm going to sometimes just use the modular buildings the way they're already pre-designed without having to, think about the structure of houses and the street structures and all that kind of stuff. And they should really feel organic in the sense that you're just kind of building it randomly. Like, imagine somebody built a house, and then the roads around that house would kind of be built around the house, and then somebody else later on, maybe a year or two down the line, would build another house nearby. And then the roads would kind of have to weave around that house. So it's just a continuous process of kind of going one at a time a little bit here. I wanted it to feel as random and as unplanned as possible. You'll see as I kind of go through the rest of this later on in the episode as this build continues, I actually end up creating a kind of city planned area versus this area, which is not very city planned. And here's an example actually right here of a house where I created a ceiling inside. So we'll create some quests, maybe that take the player inside there, meet a certain group, maybe not a faction, but maybe like a guild of some sort will be stationed there. And we'll probably make a couple of those types of buildings and houses just because, it adds some more character to places players can go. It feels like it's not just city streets everywhere. It's got more complexity to it in a way. Needed to add some landmarks. That's kind of an obvious thing. The landmarks actually help players associate where they are relative to other things. That's about the extent of what I really understand about it in the game. I was playing around with how close I could get certain pieces there, and I decided, well, that tower, we'll just put it on the other side. The more landmarks you've got scattered around an area, it makes it easy for players to kind of help navigate. And then there's me just kind of making a random pathway around some buildings that were already there, and then just trying to plug in some other houses to make it feel, again, as organic as possible. Use the modular segments, move them around, adjust them, make it feel like, these were kind of built in over time. Try and get some good windows in here too, so it's not just plain walls all the time everywhere. It can kind of get a little tedious, but that's why this is sped up, and that's why I'm talking over it, so you don't just get bored, or this ends up being like 6 episodes long. This is actually like, I think all this work in here, probably 2 to 2.5 hours, give or take, after you see everything that gets completed here. We're not going to finish the city by any stretch of the means in this episode, because I already know where this ends. But we get a pretty good idea, infrastructure built out to start with, at least kind of in the Old Town sector that I wanted to build here. So this, again, keeps continuing out. I start putting a bunch of random pathways. The more jagged and random they feel, I think the better, at least for this segment of the city. Again, it's all about this feeling like the city was slowly expanded year by year, and then the keep was eventually built, and then you'll see, after a given amount of time here, once we get to that segment of the city, on the other side of kind of where the keep is, we're going to have more of a structured city layout. Here's another example of me kind of building something around a shopkeeper. The more little shops we have around the city, I think kind of works that way. It doesn't feel like players are always congregated in the same areas. They'll navigate to other portions of the city, and you'll see that later too as I add more inns and whatnot too. A lot of these too, it's you know, how high do you make this house versus this house? Some houses are going to be smaller or single residence. Some of them are like, you know, if there's a shop or a restaurant or, you know, some kind of guild leader or somebody of importance, or they have a business, it's probably going to be on the first floor. And then the upper floors are going to be where the people actually live. So I tried to make most of these, I think, two-story. There might be a couple where they stay relatively flat, but yeah, I think it's good to have it kind of be random, fluctuated, and not really feel like there's order to it much at all. This continues, obviously, for some time here. Get all those moved away. Yep, there we go. They're all out of the way, all out of the way. We'll get all these houses placed too, which is kind of nice. I think what I'm about to do here, yeah, we'll place it along that road, and then we'll add in some more roads on the back side of that. This building here, kind of structured around that kind of notch in the road there, which I thought was kind of neat. Create a little alleyway. I thought this house might be a good place to kind of add some kind of quest line later. It kind of felt like the right kind of place to have maybe a shady character you gotta meet, or somebody you gotta help in some facet. I didn't really build a lot of these over the top of the roads. I didn't want to feel like there was too over usage of tunnels and that kind of thing with a lot of these modular buildings. And then a lot of these you'll see I'm just kind of placing in where they fit. As long as the game let me put it there, I felt like, you know what, that's a good spot for that. That feels like it's random, unorganized, and doesn't have to feel like I'm creating just a grid line. Now the grid line will come later. This right now though, again, old side of town. Imagine this was expanded over several years, over time, as more people moved to the area and just found that there was, you know, economic growth here, reasons to live there, and feel like it's a little more unplanned, as I've said 800 times already. A lot of these I'm trying to merge here too. I wanted to create tight alleyways. That little shot there, you just saw me kind of going down the road. That was the idea. Was I wanted to, you know, it's good to see and feel what it's like for players to move around in it. Now, we don't have actual people playing this, but, you know, it's still kind of good to feel that out. Here we're going to kind of put a segment of controlled space, I guess, kind of a little bit of a guard sanctum. Maybe this is not necessarily the barracks, but like, you know, a portion of like extreme protection and security for the royalty that lives in our palace, our emperor and their family. So I used the modular buildings rather than the actual wall structures. The wall structures, they kind of bounce up and down depending on what the ground does. This, you're able to create a really, really flat, rigid segment. And again, because they're each of these modular pieces I created separately, it allowed for the ability to not have it overwhelmingly adjust the landscape. Otherwise, that interior area where the fountain is would have probably been leveled completely flat, and that's not really what I wanted. I got it to merge well with the fence, you know, wall structure on the side there. And then the other side of this is the angles. So if you build a modular building, everything is right angles. This, I got some 45s in there by building those other segments, like kind of right here in front of us right now, versus the side and the front segment, which are 90 to each other, give or take. So kind of built that out, create a little structure. We'll do more with that probably as time goes by. I moved the, what is that, a clock? That's what it's called. Move the clock out of the way. That ends up getting moved again. I don't really know where I want it to live long term. Now this segment here, I have an idea for kind of like the grand location of whatever our magical mage society might be. So I'm kind of thinking in terms of our wizards that we've created in the game, I wanted to create something where they kind of hold control over the magical essence of the area. So they've got these kind of Everstone crystals that we used in Brightwood. We'll put these in a few other places as time goes by in other regions, because there's some importance to them. But they're kind of like this overall magical essence we've already talked about several times. So I'm playing around with them as a landmark, obviously, in the city. But then you'll notice I'm using those castle modular buildings, putting them next to it, having it expand into that, and it's kind of tough to line them up exactly. As you can see, I play around with this quite a bit. And the idea is I want the tower to go up in the same location as where the crystal's coming out. And so as time goes by here, I will add a couple more crystals in the mix here too, because I want this to feel like this is a massively important location for the magical enterprises, the magical infrastructure command, controlling faction of our wizards. So yeah, a couple stones here, get them kind of lined up as square as possible with each other, and I probably should have used those grid lines that are actually on the ground there that you can see, making giant squares across the grasslands, but go figure. I decided I'm going to do it just kind of eyeballing it. So create a couple different modular segments, and eventually here I get them lined up so that we can get those towers directly up the middle. You see that one missed, so then I got to go back, I got to shift it over, because you can't shift it into the landmark building, because then it says, oh, you can't have two things in the same place at the same time. So you got to shift it over, rebuild inside of it, and here you can see, boom, tower ends up lining up pretty good with it. I played around with the size of the towers for a while. Eventually I get to a height and everything that I feel like works with those landmarks themselves. Takes some time. And then I connect them at the bottom too, kind of across here, so that it feels like we're creating almost like a little courtyard space in between them. So this will kind of be like not a secret location, because obviously, anyone in the city is going to be able to see this. It's not like they're necessarily hiding. They're in plain sight as far as the building goes. But I wanted it to feel like the center of that was like, you're not allowed in here unless you are a part of this group or you've been invited, that sort of thing. So we'll definitely attach some quests in here as time goes by that are attached to kind of the history and the lore and controlling entity of magic in the area, kind of like a lot of places do. I didn't want it to really necessarily be like a university, like a school of magic. That felt way too generic to a lot of other things that exist in fantasy, RPGs, literature, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure exactly what this will be long term, but yeah, for the time being, just kind of creating the ground, the foundation of it. So I get all four towers just about situated here in a spot that I like it. I think I actually moved this one over just slightly again. Yep, there it is. Just to get it as lined up as I possibly can. And it's hard to build those segments inside the other tower, because it's like it's just hard to click on and find. So eventually there, we got it to a point where you can still see the vines kind of growing in and out of stuff. And I'm okay with that. I think I like to imagine maybe the vines were there first and then the castle was kind of more or less built around it. Then we create one segment tower right in the middle, up nice and tall. Whoever is in charge of our magical faction leader of sorts is gonna maybe live in that tower, or at least work in that tower. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I added a couple of windows and other portions throughout the whole thing here, just to kind of try and make it feel like there was more to this building. Played around with segments of, that acted like they connected the towers. I don't remember if I kept that piece or not, but I do add a couple extra lookout points here, as well as if there's like tower offices for all the other wizards who are potentially doing magical research and whatnot. Yeah, there we go. I moved the clock one more time. I knew I did that at some point. And then here's where we kind of really set the layout of what the city's gonna more or less look like. So on the right here, you'll notice I'm creating a very strict structure as I go. Those two roads are actually pretty much identical on the side of the central keep gateway there. Oh, I guess I don't do that yet. I do the walls first. Oh, goodness. Okay, so yeah, you enter from that side of the city as far as the territory goes, and then yeah, I have the fence kind of go here, line up with that main road, create a gap in between, so that'll be kind of the main entrance there, and then I continue this kind of around a little bit. So this will be the main city walls, but we're gonna have segments of quote-unquote city slash farm slash peasantry land that's kind of gonna be the south there. So this whole region should feel like it's pretty much just all populated is the goal. And then this segment here is all about just creating random roads, and I just tried to make it as unorthodox as possible. If you're somebody who has a little bit of OCD and likes order and design and reasoning behind things, you're gonna hate these roads because they don't. You might like these roads on the right side when I get to them, because on the right side it's gonna be as if the city got to a point where everyone was like, or not everybody, but the faction leaders were like, hey, we're going to need to make sure we create something that's scalable and buildable for the future, have some city planning components to it. So a little segment chiseled out there for our magical entity castle thing that I still just cannot think of a good name for. And then more random connected roads, just that will put a lot of modular buildings in between. And then the in space, the ever important in space. These I wanted them to feel random, but also kind of centralized. I use a lot of these big ones because they just hold more capacity as far as players go. I think, honestly, I can't remember if they're 1,000 or 1,200 at this point, but yeah, they're pretty big. So, and then this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. Now, cities as they expand, especially if you think about like the concept of ancient cities. So, this is some walls just around our magical place. That way it has some courtyardy space and actually has a segment that belongs to itself as if it's its own private entity. But the walls that I'll kind of place around the main city blocks that are apart from the main city walls that look like big castle walls is because I wanted to feel like there was old walls that were built around where the city expanded out to. And then eventually the city's population, it kept expanding, and that old city wall segment just got to a point where it wasn't big enough. It wasn't gonna suffice anymore, and so as a result, they had to build a second set of city walls beyond that. And so we'll kind of take these segments here that I'm building and add some kind of ruined wall segments to it as well, as if it was unkept. It's not really important anymore. It doesn't serve a purpose. And then the next set of main city walls is kind of the current setup that our city runs out of. Then we're going to go ahead and build out kind of a marketplace here. So not only should it revolve around our in space here, create a little tavern, and then I use this circular section here that I built to kind of create the central location for that. So this will kind of be like our bazaar, our grand marketplace. It's got a couple of taverns in here of varying sizes, shapes. Blacksmith, of course, is always going to be necessary. I think I did, or maybe I should, can't remember which, add more potion shops, more blacksmiths around here. I don't want all players to just congregate in this one location. This will be a central location, sure, but there should feel like there are other places throughout. And we've got that inn and tavern on the old side of town with some market stalls. This will have a ton of market stalls with some inn space and some taverns, potion shop, blacksmith, all that good stuff. But we'll add segments throughout the entire city, so it feels like there's reasons for players to potentially go to certain areas. And so yeah, here's another inn space, here's another tavern. This I kind of built out as kind of maybe being the fancier side of town. It's got a nicer tavern compared to the ones in the central side of town. Same goes for this potion shop. And then, oh yeah, I add another potion shop down on that side. But I'm going to go ahead and let live Kyle take back over here for the rest of the episode and showcase what else we got done while we were logged in here. Alright, I think we got a pretty good start to our city. I would like to make sure we do this little upgrade we've got available, and I'm going to go into advertising. I think it's fine to start getting that to catch up with the rest of the group. Go ahead and release that. Okay, a couple more things I would like to make sure we do is pay attention to the color in the sky for this region, because I want it to be relatively happy and cheery. So I'm going to do the sky first. I want to make Apex, the highest point, very sky blue-ish. So if I go like that, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. That's real good. I could make it relatively sunset-y looking, I guess, on the edges, but no, I like this to be kind of all the same here. Go a little lighter there, but this is going to be somewhat bluish on the horizon. Let's make this a little bit lighter, but bluish, and that looks like, oh yeah, that's a happy-go-lucky city sky right there. Right now, color, this should be like overall tint through the center of this, right? If I go like that, it's very white. Okay, let's make it a little bit more. If I make it green, bring this in here. Yeah, that adds some more green to the faraway hills. That's kind of what I would like to happen. If I make the light color blue, ooh, that's interesting. If I go really blue, let's go very light, see what that does. Oh yeah, that gives it kind of a light blue haze going out into the distance. I like that. Ambient light. Oh, that's kind of like, is that like the shadow? Yeah. Let's keep that on the blue side and then maybe kind of slightly down a little bit. Maybe that's too much blue. Yeah, we'll just kind of make that straight white. I think that's fine. I can make it very bright. If I make it dark, that does... Oh, okay, don't want that. Yeah, let's make this a little on the brighter side. Not too bright. I want there to be, you know, sun shadows. And then light color. What does this do? Ah, okay. Without getting too extreme, I basically want this to be like Disney Village brightness to some extent. So it feels like as players are going through here, there's like, you know, a sense of like, there's nothing to worry about here. Nothing bad will ever happen in this capital city that's clearly not a target of other factions. All right, I like that. I like that a lot. Fantabulous. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this neighboring settlement, or not settlement, but region next to the capital city and next to Karak quite yet, but I would like to at least kind of get the theme going as far as some of the colors, specifically the sky. What I want there to be is maybe white at the apex, and then I want this to have kind of a sunset feeling, so let's go yellow, and then horizon we're going to go red, and we'll kind of go like that. Maybe a little more yellow there, and then we'll make it a little yellow-ish at the apex, but still a little on the white side. Yeah. So that looks... Ooh, oh my. Okay, and then ambient light. If I make this red, what does that do? I can never remember. That is the landscape itself. Let's basically try and go... Let's go region tint, maybe a little between green and yellow. I want this to feel like... Because this is going to be like farmland. I want it to feel like we're at like sunset, like giving it kind of a harvesty moon type of look. Not harvest moon, I guess. Reddish tint as if we're like fall colors, but it's still daylight out. I'm not sure this is getting the right feel. Maybe if I go orangey? Oh, I forgot to hit apply. That's why it wasn't doing anything. Oh, that's really white. That's not good. Okay, this has just got to be like the grass color. Okay. Nope, that's not right either. Can I revert? What is reverting? Nope, that's... Oh gosh, we done messed up. Mistakes were made. That's too green. Oh, it's probably because it's too bright. Maybe if I go like that? Oh, that's better. Okay. Yeah, maybe actually like waves of like... You know, waves of grain type of thing. Maybe more yellow. That's really green still looking. It's way too yellow. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. Okay, ambient light. What happens if I make that red? Can't really tell. Light color blue. No. Go a little on the red side. And then maybe brighten it. Ooh, there we go. That's a little better. Yeah. Ambient light, but give it kind of a yellowy look. Yellowy red, orange look. I feel like I'm almost there, but it's like too extreme. Maybe it's my sky color. Maybe make the horizon less Jurassic. Yeah, that might work a little better. All right, well, this will be a work in progress on this one. And then as I did for a poll on the community page for the channel, I asked what people wanted to see added in, and the winner was in fact a new player class. So right off to start with, I'm going to check prefabs because I know exactly what I want to do here. And some people had some suggestions, I know, and we'll add stuff in as time goes on. We've got 2 more slots after this for player classes. I know exactly what I want for this one. It's not really a good prefab for it, so we'll get to have fun with this. I'm going to use this long-haired head model. Let's get rid of the hat for now. Kind of like this torso model. I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Actually, I'll just make it to size of what our player classes are to start with. No, don't change the bone scale. To raise it up just a smidge. Okay, I don't necessarily want a tail. Maybe I do. Yeah, this might have a tail. You'll see why in a second. For now, let's go ahead and adjust the arms. That's probably not appropriate size and everything yet, but we'll find the right ones in a short amount of time here. I just want to make sure I can see them appropriately, so as I do make those changes, it feels like I'm doing it correctly. Let's go ahead and just bring it outside the body so I can see what it is. That looks ridiculous. Okay, let's just apply that for the time being. Just gonna make them idle so it's easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, as far as legs go, I want this to be hoofed. So let's actually take the torso and move it up slightly. Bring this in, down. Doesn't quite work super well with this dress. To really hide it, I've got to go significantly smaller. I could kind of go like that, so you just see the tail end of it. What does that look like running? It looks like they've got a very tiny leg. Not too bad. It cuts through the front a little bit. I'm kind of okay with that. Let's clean it up so when they're idle, it's not poking through. And then I'd call it a win. Okay, and then arms, we're gonna go just kind of regular human arms. Human-ish arms. I don't think I want sleeves, though. That is a zombie arm. I don't want a zombie arm. Yeah, I think this one maybe seems like the best, so let's match that up. I kind of like where the other one is. There we go. More or less. Maybe those arms are a little small. Give like a slight hue to the skin color. Let's go for eyes. We'll keep them dark, but not like evilly bright red. Ooh, hair. I was gonna go kind of like a red brown, I thought. There we go. Ooh, this white is like a gem. Don't want it to be everstone colored. Let's make it more like a green, like emeraldy. And then I'm thinking like, yeah, like a good ale-ish green. What's this? Oh, that's the bottom part of the dress. Really dark green. Oh, this is kind of around the emerald. Let's go gray as if this is like metallic. Oh, and then this is the sash. Okay, cool. Maybe closer to a black like that. Kind of thinking second thoughts in the eyes. Maybe kind of like a yellow. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then the last piece that I do want to make sure I actually do, and I don't forget. Ooh, what is this? Is that like a spiky crown? Cool. That's not what I want. We're going to add some horns, not those horns. Where are the other horns? Those are antennae. These horns, but much, much tinier. And they're green, which means I'm gonna change that. Okay, we'll kind of go, yeah, like that, as if it's kind of wound into the hair a little bit. Maybe I'll change the scale slightly. Yeah, that way it's kind of coming out of the top of the head. There we go. Okay, now what color is that? Not that one. Is it this one? It is this one. Okay, so that's the emerald, or what I was saying was an emerald. This needs to be more brownish colored. Very dark brown, preferably. There we go. Maybe that's too dark. No, that's the hair. Yeah, like that. Which means I kind of want to change the hair a little bit. Yeah, that works. A little more contrast there. And this is going to be called the Ashwin Druid. Oh, there's already 13 users, because apparently I didn't pause the game while I was doing this. Well, congratulations, people who are playing as druids. You're about to get your abilities changed. Okay, we're going to make this basic attack missile range, instant cast. It's not going to have any cost to it. We'll say 1 damage to start with is a-okay. And obviously our druids are going to be very like plant and nature-y based, but I want that to have some kind of elemental element to them too. So we're going to say they have some wind abilities. We're going to call this Spirit Gust. To make it a straight shot using, yeah, fire, so it looks like it's kind of like a gusty, windy sort of thing, and we'll make it kind of a gray-brown maybe. Looks like it's got like dust or dirt kind of kicked up with the wind. I don't know. Send a gust of spiritual wind at your enemy, dealing 1 damage. All right, really quickly, we're not going to use rage. We'll say give this a good chunk of mana. Base health. I'm okay with this being moderately tanky, but not like tanky. 12 is maybe a good spot. Let's see, right about there. Make sure their speed is up to par with all the other characters. Quickly, let's also make sure that this has a reasonable cooldown. There we go. And I immediately want this to have a CC ability. So we'll give it a slightly longer cast. Missile range still, let's say 10-second cooldown, so it's relatively long. Good amount of mana. I'm gonna say just a small bit of damage over time. I'm gonna say 0.3 damage, 3 seconds, so it's just 0.1 damage. This is not a damaging ability. The goal here is going to be root in place for that same time frame, 3 seconds. We're going to call this Root Bind, which is cool because the actual effect appearance in the game when you do a root in place is like vines coming out of the ground. So this will work perfectly for this character. Going to be a cast. Ballistic. I'm going to say Sky Beam, and then let's go not Earth. I guess Fire's kind of. I don't know if that's what I want either. Let's just do physical. So it's just a little dot that comes down. And it should be very green because the vines are going to come out green. There we go. And it'll just be snare your target in a vine, dealing 0.3 damage over 3 seconds and rooting the target in place for 3 seconds. Cool. And I think this icon is probably the best one we've got for this. Alright, so there's our base attacks. Let's go ahead and think about what we want to do for the rest of those. If you've got ideas maybe for the abilities for our druid, please leave some comments. I would love to hear some feedback. Maybe we'll add some of those in the next episode when we get to that again. Because we also need to start thinking about the abilities for level 6 for a lot of these as well. I mean, we're not really at that point leveling-wise quite yet. But it would be a good idea to start thinking about everybody's level 6 abilities, because we could have some fun with those. Start getting kind of intense. But I would say that this is a good place to go ahead and call for the day. We got a lot of progress done getting the start on our grand city of Valkyrin, capital city for our empire. We've got a new player class in our Ashwin Druid, which we'll expand on some with their lore and backstory in the coming episodes as well. But until next time, I'm Kyle. This has been that one playthrough of MMORPG Tycoon 2, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day.